So it's been a minute since me and Brady have been on the show, but since then, if you've missed it, and we haven't missed this one, Ohio State won the national championship as an 8 seed in the first year of the 12-team college football playoff. So we're pretty excited, to say the least. Brady's got the national championship swag going on. I'm wearing the red Nike hoodie and everything else. We're pretty happy, to say the least. But nonetheless, I'm Chase Younts. That's Brady King. You're at Ohio State University right now.
Yep.
How you feeling?
Man, just feeling great. I mean, obviously we haven't been on since then, but a lot happened in a short span of time. You just rattle off 4 straight games like that in dominant fashion. And just to win, just to do it against Notre Dame also felt so good because obviously Ohio State and Notre Dame don't like each other. There's a lot of history there. And just with all the comments that Marcus Freeman made and all that stuff, all the Lou Holtz stuff, like, couldn't have asked for a better scenario and fighting against adversity. And, you know, the thing we set off, and I know we did a good amount of episodes last offseason talking about, you know, all the players we got in and all the big storylines, and that the goal is to, you know, win a national championship, and exactly what we wanted to happen happened.
And to say the least, those players did their job. A lot of them are going to the National Football League right now. And the goal, once again, let's win another.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's just a repeat, and it's very possible that could happen. It's not nearly out of the realm of possibilities. In fact, yes, some sites, we are the favorite to win it all, just depending on who you ask. And it's really close. Ohio State, Texas will be right there at that top spot for betting odds to win the Natty, and obviously that game's happening week 1, so we'll see a lot then for sure.
We definitely will. We'll have a lot of coverage leading up to that game in week 1 of college football. You know, obviously the championship run that Ohio State was able to make, you know, there will probably be some sort of a 30 for 30 or some sort of a documentary that's made off of this one, because it's incredible. Who knows how many years' time that it'll take, but I mean, this is one that, you know, it will be studied. It was incredible to see happen, but you know, especially for an Ohio State fan. Everybody else might not be thinking the same thing, but we really don't give a damn. So
everybody else hates it, and that's exactly how.
That's why we love it even more. You know,
exactly.
Exactly. And just looking at the offseason, again, Ohio State, they announced that they're not doing a spring game because of how long the season lasted. This is the first time that, you know, teams have played a national championship game into the latter part of January. This, you know, the game took place on MLK Day, to say the least. And spring games are normally taking place early to mid-April. So not a whole lot of time to let those guys rest and recover, but Ohio State's given them. A lot of these teams aren't really doing spring games. There's a lot of spring showcases, to say the least. But since Ohio State won the national championship, a lot of players have decided to declare for the draft, as they should. You know, there are too many great players on this team that just still be sitting in college, and, you know, they're going to be impacts for NFL teams, a lot of them day 1 impacts, to say the least. But, you know, you move along with also some coaching staff changes. Jim Knowles left for Penn State, questioning, we don't know why. And at this point, I don't think we really care at the moment, if you're right, Brady.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix of a couple of things when he leaves. Part of it, I think they paid him $3.1 million, and we would only go up to $2.75 million. And I think that says a lot. I think it says, of course, we viewed him as a really good coach, and I think he did a great job at Ohio State. But the reality is I don't think you needed a great defensive coordinator to make this defense play great, because, I mean, Matt Patricia could have been our DC last year. We would have still won the Natty with that squad. And I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think many people really do. I mean, it's kind of surprising that he would go to Penn State out of all places. You know, you'd expect him to take a head coach job or something when he leaves Ohio State. But nonetheless, I guess I'm thankful for him for being the coordinator of a Natty team. A little strange the way it ended. But I guess I don't wish him well necessarily, because I don't want Penn State to do good. But I do, you know, wish him success when he's not playing Ohio State. I'll give him that. I wish him personally success. So definitely a weird loss, though.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. It was less than a week after winning the national championship game, which really was odd. The timing of it, like you mentioned, the parade, the ceremony at the stadium, he wasn't there. Yeah. Reports were coming out before that. It was just a really odd thing. He tried to get some players to go along with him and stuff. It's just, very interesting to say the least. And then you talked about Matt Patricia. They brought him in as a defensive coordinator. Obviously, he was the head coach of the Detroit Lions for a little bit. Didn't really work out that well. But when he was a defensive coordinator in Foxborough for the Patriots, they ended up winning 2 Super Bowls under him as the DC. So, again, bringing in a guy who's got some championship experience as a coordinator. And, again, some of these guys do well as a coordinator compared to being head coaches. What do you expect from Matt Patricia, especially with some of those studs on the defensive side of the ball, like Caleb Downs?
Yeah, I mean, I expect big things because I trust Ryan Day a lot with his coordinator hires because he's been almost perfect making them to this point. The one bad one was Kerry Combs, but he fixed that quickly, and probably should have kept him as a position coach after all. But he learned from his mistake, hired Jim Knowles, he hired Chip Kelly, he hired Kevin Wilson. Retained Kevin Wilson. And other than that, I think he's done a really good job with position coach hires as well. So I'm trusted in that. And also knowing that Matt Patricia has, a long background, obviously with the Patriots. And people will say, like, oh, it was more Belichick, blah, blah, blah. Nobody really knows, bro. Like people act like they were in the team meetings. Like, I'm sure he had a solid part in the Patriots' defensive success back then. And then I don't think the thing with the Lions just does not matter. Like, his head coaching ability has, like you said, it has nothing to do with this hire to be Ohio State's defensive coordinator. And with the defensive talent that Ohio State has, I mean, he could definitely have us as a top 5 defense year one. And, we'll see how long this is. I'm not sure if it's a long-term plan. Who knows how much he likes recruiting. But for this particular season, I'm excited to see what he can do. And, Caleb Downs gets to learn his third system in 3 years.
Third system in 3 years for arguably the best defensive player in college football. And I mean, it's going to be fun to watch, especially with some of the young studs that they have coming up in that secondary and all over the place on defense. We flipped to the offensive side of the ball. Chip Kelly decides to, I'm not going to say make a lateral move. He does go back to the NFL, but at an offensive coordinator position. Under Pete Carroll, the new Raiders head coach, which is really weird to say. But Chip Kelly goes to Las Vegas, the new offensive coordinator there. Best of luck to him. Again, obviously played a huge part in Ohio State's success, as all of these coaches have. Brian Hartline's back into the fold of the offensive coordinator position. Obviously, before Ryan Day was still calling the plays and whatnot, but Brian Hartline did hold the position for a second until Chip Kelly took over, won a national championship, gotten out of here, and now Brian Hartline gets a chance to really have this offense at his hands, and he's got an absolute stud on the outside in Jeremiah Smith that he gets to work with.
Yeah, he does, and I'm not nearly as I definitely wish Chip the best of luck. He did a really good job outside of one game. That this year, yeah. And I think it was a good hire by Ryan Day in hindsight. And I'm not nearly as surprised about as Jim Knowles because of the fact that I know that Chip doesn't like recruiting. It's been obvious. That's why he wants to have the least responsibilities possible and just coach, which is fine. It's very understandable. So I'm not surprised. I think that was kind of Ryan Day's thought process going into the year is he's going to do a good job here and either take a coordinator job with the Raiders, and he's getting a ton of money. He's going to be the highest paid coordinator in the world, technically. So congrats to Chip Kelly. But like you said, Brian Hartline finally getting his chance because in 2023, we gave him the coordinator title, but that was just an excuse to pay him more money to stay as a position coach. It was really Ryan Day was still just our full-fledged offensive coordinator. But this time, it's for real. This time he's actually the OC. He's calling plays. I had some intel that Brian is, and obviously this isn't too surprising, Brian is definitely planning on throwing the ball, to say the least, a good amount. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see that. And like you said, you can expect him to be more of a pass game type of guy next season. And with the receivers he has, I mean, you got Jeremiah Smith coming back as the best player in college football. You have Carnell Tate, probably a top 5 receiver in college football, in my opinion. Fielded some 6-figure offers or 7-figure offers that he declined from the portal. Brandon Ennis he was a former 5-star, been getting reps. Completely snapped the Notre Dame defender's ankles on 3rd and 7 to convert a first down. And then Bryson Rogers, Quincy Porter, the list goes on. But yeah, I'm expecting good things from Brian Hartline, and I'm excited to see him do this because I think he's the most valuable. I think he's the most valuable non-head coach in college football, even when he was a coordinator.
Yeah, a position coach at that. I mean, it's a pretty bold claim, but at the same time, I would not really argue with that at all, to say the least. I mean, he practically retained and kept in Jeremiah Smith from any of those offers happening from other schools, and especially coming out from signing day and stuff in high school. So that huge, to say the least. And
it's been a long time since we haven't at least had an argument. Since he's gotten have the guys he's recruited play, we've probably had an argument just about every year to have the best receiver in the country, and the best receiver room in the country as well.
And wide receiver, you debate will happen throughout the offseason. We can keep going in on that. There's so much time and there's so much stuff that we can cover. Again, maybe we'll have a couple players on the show. We'll see how that whole thing plays out. But as we kind of wind down on this, a bit of a shorter episode, just to just kind of hop on the mic and get to talk some things we haven't talked about in a minute. But the big thing we're also looking at is the quarterback battle this coming up year. Again, you have Lincoln Keenholz, you have Julian Sayin. Tavian St. Clair comes into the fold from Bellefontaine. You've got that, and then it's a very interesting one to see that battle on how that's going to play out. Lincoln will be going into his 3rd year here at Ohio State, and then Julian Sayin into a 2nd, and was at Bama for a couple of weeks to start his career off, and then Tavian, a freshman. So it's 3 guys that are at different parts of their careers, but all looking to be starters for the first time in college football. And just knowing that there's going to be a huge game against Texas to start the season off at home. The time and everything else hasn't been determined on it, but regardless, a huge game. Any early shots in the dark about who that quarterback might be? Just a prediction, if you would, Brady.
Yeah. So personally, I have a pretty firm belief that it's Julian Sayin. There's people that have come out and made bold claims, like even Jeremy Birmingham. He believes that he made I believe he said a couple weeks ago that his bold prediction is that Lincoln Keenholz will start against Texas. I don't see a world where that happens. I'm going to be so honest. I just think Sayin passed him last year so early on that it's like I don't know if it's truly a battle between those two. I think Tavian might even have a better chance. But yeah, I definitely think Julian will start. And I've just heard rave reviews from a lot of people in terms of like even Ryan Day in his press conferences, and even some people inside the Woody, some undisclosed people that have seen him very up close, possibly even played against him in practice, have said that told me last year in April that he was the best quarterback on the team over Will Howard. Now they since revoked that take during the season and said Will's definitely the guy for the job, but still said that Julian is a stud and the total future of this team. So
high praise. It's high praise for a young guy, again, who hasn't started in college football, but again, it's exciting to see that the amount of talent that, you have a 3-sport athlete from high school who was nicknamed West Dakota Heisman and everything else. Like he does everything so well. You've got Julian Sayin, who just, you just watch him and you're like, okay, this dude's legit. And you look at Tavian St. Clair, the development from his start of his high school career to now. You're like, okay, this dude's like a completely different player, to say the least. So
he transformed.
I mean, you saw it in front of your own eyes, like playing against him. So it's kind of wild to think about right there. But before we part, just, we're not going to go into much detail since there's so much and so many episodes we can cover this in. If there's one position group besides a quarterback that you're looking at where you have the most questions, where would it be?
Question mark. Okay, so there's two, and they're for different reasons. The first one where I have a question mark is the D-line, and it's because of the depth. It's not because of this. I think the starting group, even though it's 4 new starters, I think it's studs across the board with Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry at the end, Caden McDonald, Nedrick Houston at D tackle. That's going to go just fine. But there's not a lot of depth behind them at times because of transfer portal and lack of some recruiting losses because people negatively recruit Larry Johnson and say he's leaving. So some of these kids will leave. So that one. The other one is actually corner. And I'm talking about all 3 cornerback spots, nickel and both outside. And this isn't because of how good the position will be. I'm very confident. I think it's the best cornerback group in the nation. The question mark is because I think it's a very big unknown on who the starters are going to be. I mean, we know, I'll lock this in. We know who 2 of the starters will be, but there's some question marks. So IGB, Davison Igbinosun, clear starter. He's back for his senior season, which was big. Jermaine Matthews Jr. I mean, he's definitely going to start, whether that be in the nickel or on the outside. Then you got a battle for the third one. You've got your traditional – you only have 2 traditional nickels that came here to play nickel on the roster right now, and Miles Lockhart and Lorenzo Stiles Jr. I don't think either of them are going to be the choice at nickel to start. I think they'll both rotate in a little bit. I expect a guy that played corner to come in and play there, such as Jermaine, or if Jermaine plays the outside, I expect it to be possibly Aaron Scott Jr. or Bryce West. And then you got the freak, Devin Sanchez. I think he's the best high school corner I've ever seen in my life. He might be the best one on the team. I don't know.
Jeez.
But you just haven't heard anything about it. Like, we haven't had a practice yet, so I just don't really want to throw him in there. But I'll throw a bold shot and just say Aaron Scott Jr. is going to be that third guy.
You haven't heard. We might. We're going to hear soon. I'll tell you that. Hey,
we haven't heard yet, but.
And, maybe down the road we have one of those guys from one of those position groups on the show. We'll see what happens with that.
I think we definitely might have to stay tuned. Also, you know what?
We know the people listening will have to stay tuned on that because that's that's definitely interesting.
I'll announce it right now, honestly. We're going to have Caden McDonald on the podcast. We don't have a date set for that, but it's going to happen. He's actually already talked about the podcast, and he really wants to be on a podcast, so we'll make that happen.
Well, you heard the breaking news here first. We're figuring out the day and time on that one and everything else, logistics. Obviously, Caden has a busy schedule as a Division I athlete and college, national champion as well. But Caden McDonald will be on the Cut to the Chase Sports podcast here in some capacity throughout the off season. So we're excited to get that arranged and going and everything else. So
definitely.
Yes. So again, we will see how that whole thing plays out. But we're back. We're back here. Ohio State won the national championship back to back incoming. We'll see how this whole thing plays out. Again, shots called, shots fired, everything else. That's Brady King in Columbus, Ohio. I'm Chase Johnson, Cincinnati, Ohio. And we'll see you guys next time here on the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast.